Hey, Gracebased families. This is Megan Hunt. I'm here co-hosting this podcast for the next 8 episodes with Cody Kimmel, and we're talking about what grace-based parenting looks like in action. We're talking about connection and correcting our kids. I'm a mom of 6 myself. I'm from Ruston, Louisiana, and I'm a first grade teacher, a foster mom, and I'm a practitioner of TBRI, trust-based relational intervention. And all those things kind of help me to be able to figure out what parenting really looks like in times where kids are not obeying, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed. What does grace-based families really look like in action? So if you identify with me in any of those ways, you need to listen to these episodes because they're going to give you a lot of hope and a lot of practical tools for parenting your kids with grace.
Well, welcome back to the Gracebased Podcast. I'm Cody Kimmel, Executive Director of Gracebased, and I'm here with Megan Hunt. She is a mom of 6, a first grade teacher, and a TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention Specialist, who works with a group called The Well. Did I do that right?
That's right. You got it all. Yeah.
No notes, no anything.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, Megan's joining us. She has been deeply affected personally by grace-based and the work that it's done over the years, and really has just also an incredible wealth of knowledge, particularly as how the understanding of grace and our role in our lives with our kids connects with even a lot of the science and research that's gone behind trust-based relational intervention. And so I'm really glad you're here. I'm really excited that you're here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be really discussing this idea of connection. You know, we've talked about this in our last podcast. We talked about how for us to really be present for our own kids and build the types of connections and attachments that they need to thrive, we need to address that in our hearts. So if you have not listened to that, make sure to go back and listen to that. But let's talk about connection. Why is connection such an important part of parenting and working with kids?
Sure. I mean, connection is the essence of relationships, right? And we were created for connection, I believe, by God. And so connection with others allows us to build a foundation of trust. It allows us to scaffold growth, and it allows us to continue to develop along a healthy trajectory. So the goal is connecting with our kids in hopes that we would be able to disciple them and lead them in the way that they need to go. And without that connection, without that trust, we're really not able to do that. We're not able to be effective parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and to the point where, I mean, even just in conversation with you, like connection is more important than like a lot of other things that we can think about. Like it's more important than perfection for that matter and stuff like that. And so as we talk about connection, this is something that we really need to kind of focus on. And what it requires, as you've talked about, is this idea of presence. So to be connected with somebody, for a parent to be connected with their kid, it requires a level of presence. So let's talk about that idea and what does it take to be the kind of presence that we need to build those strong connections with our kids.
So I think when we think about feeling safe and needing connection from our parents, think about just the physical presence of somebody that makes you feel better. Like when you're a kid, where do you want to go? If there's like a thunderstorm or something in your house, right to your parents' room. So I asked one of my students to draw a picture of what safe meant to them. And they drew a picture of like a little stick kid laying in bed next to their stick mom and their stick dad. And it's like the sweetest little thing because that's safe, right?
Oh, yeah.
So physically being near somebody, proximity to a safe adult is essential for us to feel safe. And that's how our bodies were wired and programmed, right? That we'd be able to return to our caretaker as a safe base. And, you know, even animals are wired and programmed that way. So physically being available to our kids is really important. And I think with that, being able to give them all of our presence, not our body, scrolling our phone or working on a computer or watching a show or talking to someone else, but really giving them our actual attention, which I know is one of the most difficult things to do. It's such a challenge.
One of the things that I will try to do, I mean, you can put some things in practice of like, hey, when you get home, go put your phone in a different room, things like that. Sometimes like the reality of life is there will be times when your kids will be present with you and you will be distracted by something, or maybe even need to because of work, because of stuff like that. A lot of parents are working from home, different things like that. One of the things I know I try to do is, if I can tell that they're trying to get my attention or be present with me, at least take the moment to communicate with them like, hey, I really want to be here with you. Give me a minute or give me 30 seconds to finish this. And then I'll set my phone down and do that.
Yes.
That even something like that helps, because the reality of this messiness of life, even that type of presence can feel hard, but there's even ways to navigate the realities of our life.
Yes. I think if that's something that parents are struggling with, there's a lot of practical tips to be able to, okay, I need to work on just physically being there. And I think about, honestly, how much time has my body been in the same room or just within proximity to my kids? And with teenagers, a lot of times I have to really work hard at like, okay, getting them out of their room, getting them in one spot. And so we cannot meet our kids' physical and emotional needs if we're not with them. It's very, very hard to do. Yeah. So doing whatever we can to be able to be in proximity with them, I think is really important.
Oh, yeah. Now, you talk about physical closeness and physical presence. What are some other ways to be present? What are some other ways that you have to kind of meet your kids where they need to be met so that they can feel that level of connection?
Yeah, I think emotionally being present is the next thing that I would kind of go towards is, okay, your body can be in the same room as them, but then what are we doing to share with them that I want to know you, I want to help you, I'm here for you, you're important, your voice matters to me. And I think I think about connecting with my kids the way that maybe a good friend would connect with me, right? They're not going to come over to my house and just like sit there and scroll their phone on my couch next to me. Right. They're not going to just wander around. They're going to actually ask me, how are you? And if I share something with a friend that's bothering me, they're probably not going to be like, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're not going to say, get over it.
Right. And sometimes I think we can be guilty with our own kids of really responding to them in a much different way than we would expect other adults to respond to us. Right. If a child, especially, let's say one of my girls are 10 and 11. If they're talking to me about something that happened at school that's really important to them, let's say this friend said something not true about this friend and so on. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm sure it'll fix tomorrow. Or like, well, that wasn't very nice. Yeah. That kind of emotionally dismissive. With those little problems, what I think my fear is that if I dismiss those little things right now, that when she's 10 or 11, she's telling me about, that's big to her. Yeah. That someday when she gets to be bigger, then the things that are really big, she's going to say, well, my mom didn't think my problems were very important. Right. She really didn't really thoughtfully respond to me. She didn't meet me where I was. She kind of dismissed me or said, that's not that important. And so I think hearing our kids in the little things, even if, like you said, even if it's just taking a minute to say, look at them and say, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Yeah. That sounds like that was a really hard day. Even if I disagree. Yeah. I have some of my kids honestly come by some drama because of their own fault. Yeah, you're like, that was you.
I think you're the problem.
You might be the problem. Right? But a lot of times I don't have to say that. I can just say like, that sounds like that was hard. It sounds like you're walking through a lot of really hard things. And I'd love to listen to you and walk with it through you if you'd like. And sometimes they're going to be like, no, Mom, I got it. They just want me to listen. But being available to somebody is really huge. It communicates value and preciousness, that what you're walking through really matters to me and I see you.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that kids need beyond just even the physical presence, and my dad has written about this and we talk about this a lot, is this freedom to be vulnerable with people. And if they learn early on that our vulnerability is not safe with the adults around them, then it's not that their vulnerability goes away or even their need to express that vulnerability. They'll just stop expressing it with you. And that's something that I constantly have to like gut check in my own heart, because, the dramas of a 7-year-old
it'll get you.
Feel really petty and small and meaningless. But to that 7-year-old, they're a big deal. And having to kind of take that time to say, it doesn't really, my opinions of this don't really matter. Yes. What matters is this is a felt vulnerability, and I need to be a safe person that they can confide that in. And they can feel free to share that without judgment.
And maybe you don't have to solve it. And honestly, I've had a lot of big problems with some of my teenagers that we've walked through that are very significant problems that a lot of times I can't fix. And so sometimes as a mom, if I can't fix it, I don't want to hear it because it makes me feel bad.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I can't fix this, and maybe I should have like avoided this for you somehow. And so sometimes that is something that puts a little bit of emotional distance maybe between me and my kids when I think somehow maybe I caused this or I didn't prevent it or I should have known better. I should have coached you more.
Yeah.
And so I don't really want to hear it because it's making me feel bad, but
yeah.
recognizing I don't have to solve it. I just need to hear it
Mhm.
and be willing to be somebody that is here for you because I want to continue for our relationship, especially for me as a mom of teenagers, right? We're bridging from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
That even as an adult, I want to still be able to have a relationship with you where you can trust me and I can be somebody that can be connected to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this idea of connection, you know, and really, we've talked about this even in past podcast episodes. There's this reality of witness, like sometimes the job of the parent, sometimes it's to fix problems, sometimes it is to try to prevent danger or whatever, but oftentimes it's just to be with kids as they go through the inevitability of facing challenges, of having heartache, of failing, both big failures and little failures, and just at least being with them. And some of that, even going back to this idea of connection and rooting, like developing the right kind of connections at a young age, speaks to this idea of regulation. So talk about regulation, how a parent can meet the physical, emotional needs through kind of this staging of regulation. Maybe talk a little bit about how kind of what it should look like.
Sure.
And then a little bit about how to fix where it falls short.
Our emotions are naturally going to fluctuate. That's just a part of the human experience, right? So being regulated doesn't mean that we are right in the middle all the time. It doesn't mean that we're just like a steady 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. It means that we're able to return to normal after the highs and lows of our emotional experiences. So if we're feeling really low, we're able to pull ourselves up. When we're feeling really high, we're able to regulate and pull ourselves to kind of a middle ground. And so, but that regulation dance doesn't happen to us naturally. We learn it. As babies, we're not able to regulate at all by ourselves. We're not even able to regulate our body temperature as babies. We need absolutely everything. We're dependent completely on our caregivers. So regulation is taught and modeled, and then it moves from the adult or the caregiver being the external regulator, right? We're regulating for the kids, to them doing it with us. And then eventually children learn how to regulate on their own. So what that looks like, you know, for a baby, when a baby comes home from the hospital, obviously I'm feeding that baby, I'm changing their diaper, I'm putting clothes on them, keeping them warm. I'm doing everything. When they cry, I'm figuring out what their need is, and then I'm meeting their need.
Right.
As we get older, kids get to be kind of toddler age, we're able to identify easier what they need, and then we're able to kind of help them know what they need. So I think of my foster son. So he's 2. When he was little and he would really get upset, I'm like, okay, here's a passy. Here's your passy. We plug that passy in and he calms right down. Yeah. Well, as he gets a little bit older and I'm trying to help him co-regulate, I kind of say like, it seems like you're sad. You might need your passy. And he might say, passy. I'm like, okay, let's go get your passy. I'm kind of narrating for him what I'm doing in order to help him. Well, sadly now he's too big for a passy. Right. So we can't use that tool anymore. So we had to switch a tool to a lovey, right?
Yes.
That was
I've made that transition multiple times. Yes.
Yeah. It's a hard switch.
Not for myself.
Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But now he's 2.5 and he can say, I'm sad. I need my lovey. And he will go upstairs and get his lovey. So he's completely now able to kind of more self-regulate. Yeah. But as we do that for all of our kids, it's going to look different across kind of their age brackets, and doing that for ourselves too. So what science tells us the 2 best regulators are oxygen and proprioception. So oxygen, we know what that is, right? Breathing.
Yeah. And I talk about proprioception all the time. Yeah, I know all about it.
What's
but
funny,
for everybody else who doesn't know what proprioception...
what's funny is that my little 7-year-old is now like, Mom, I just need a little bit of proprioception, because we talk about it. It's such a funny big word, but what it means is pressure. It's basically where your body is in space. It's your self understanding your body in space. And so feeling pressure is the best way that I can describe it.
Yeah.
So squeezing, pushing, there's a lot of strategies that we can use to provide proprioception for ourselves or teach other people. So my favorite is breathing and walking. Taking a walk is the number one way that somebody can calm down if they're upset, whether they're low and they need to lift themselves up a little bit. So maybe it's not calm down. Sometimes it's rise up a little, right?
Yeah.
If you're feeling really, really low and you just can't get it going, taking a walk, you're breathing deeply. And even the back and forth is integrating both hemispheres of your brain. So
and
that's
giving you proprioception.
and giving you proprioception, right? And so it was really interesting. After I had a brother that passed away in his 20s, and after he passed, I had this really strange craving to run. It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't figure it out because I had never really been like a huge runner. But after he died for about a year, all I wanted to do was run. I just ran and ran and ran. I ran some half marathons. I just loved it. And later, when I was doing some of my TBRI training, I realized that the reason I loved it was because it was regulating.
Yeah.
Right? It was proprioception and it was breathing, and it calmed me down. It helped me to kind of figure out all the feelings that I was having. So being able to help our kids with walking, sometimes we can help them to take something cold. If we have either it's like a cold drink of water or an ice cube, sucking on a popsicle is a big one for a toddler that's kind of out of sorts, or somebody that's really down-regulated, that's really kind of like in a slump.
Yeah.
And another thing that we can do is, this is my favorite one. You cannot see. It's a magic mustache. So you take your index finger and you push it kind of in between your lip and your nose, and there's a pressure point right there.
Nice.
And it actually really helps you to like calm down and chill out. And it's really interesting because if you look at a lot of people in stressed positions, like I saw, we were watching a movie about astronauts like Apollo 11 or something like that. And you see
Apollo
a lot.
15.
Well, wasn't there Apollo 11 too?
Well, there is an Apollo 11.
Okay, I don't know which movie it was.
I mean, Tom Hanks in Apollo 13.
Okay, I don't think it was that one.
Okay.
It was like a documentary. But all these guys in the NASA room had their hands like this. And,
interesting.
And it's like a stress down regulator. It was really interesting. So we can teach our kids how to do some things in order to calm themselves down so that when they do get emotional or upset, that they're able to help themselves to be calm. And then we don't get some of the negative behaviors we might see otherwise. So, I mean, we even have a poster in my son's room that's like, how to calm myself down. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, what I love about that is I think, as I think about my own parenting journey, as I talk about parenting with other people, it's almost like this is a skipped step in the discipline process, in the correcting process, where a kid is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or they're freaking out, or they're going out that we go straight to, okay, if you don't calm down, this other thing that's probably going to make you more disruptive and more upset is going to happen to you.
Yeah, but they don't have the skills to do it.
But at the time, especially when they're younger, they don't have the skills to get to a point where they can even be disciplined or be redirected or whatever.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is like this, it's almost like a hack.
It is like a hack.
You know?
And because a lot of times I think when my child is escalated, I get escalated.
Oh, yeah.
And I see that happen to me in a flash. When I have a kid that's screaming, kicking, thrashing their head back or something, I get very upset and very dysregulated. And then I'm no good for disciplining or coaching either, and they can't hear it either. So keeping our brains regulated is one of the most important things that we can do, I think, for parenting to help us.
Oh my gosh.
And so if our kids do get upset, do get escalated, one thing that is so important to remember is the neuroscience of just how our brains work. So when I like to think of our brains like a fist with our kind of hand, fingers closed around it. And we're talking about the downstairs part of your brain is where like the brain stem. That's like where all your critical functions happen, your heartbeat, your breathing, that sort of thing. But the top part of your brain is the prefrontal medial cortex. And I call that the upstairs brain. And that is where logic, problem solving, emotional regulation, empathy, all creativity are all found at the top of your brain. But when your brain gets escalated, when you start that flood of emotions, it's like your brain flips up and you cannot access that top part of your brain anymore. So your brain is just flooded in like a fight or flight or freeze moment. Your toddler is screaming. It's like we call it the lid has been flipped. They cannot access any problem solving, thinking, empathy. So when we're in this moment, of a kid screaming upset or us screaming upset, we really can't do anything other than calm down.
Yeah.
And so it's such an important skill to be able to teach our kids how to calm down. And that's, I think you're right, so often overlooked that we tell someone, calm down, but no one in the history of being upset has ever calmed down.
It's like the worst thing to say to somebody when they're freaking out.
Don't know how to do
why
it.
don't you just calm down? It's like, never thought about that.
Yeah. So start little when they're little bitty and teach them what to do. Teach them what to do. So Catterson's poster in his room says how to self-regulate. And self-regulate to me means calm yourself by yourself. So we've figured out this is how you calm yourself by yourself. And we talked about a couple of strategies. So breathing, we do a pizza breathing in my classroom and in my home where you like take a deep breath in like you're smelling the pizza. And then you like blow it like it's too hot. Like any kind of tricks to teach some deep breathing is really helpful. And teaching how to, for him, he likes to do a wall push-up. So put his hands against the wall and do some wall push-ups. That's
I just forgot the P word.
proprioception.
I was going to say paraphylaxis, but that's not.
That's
not
gotta be
it.
something else.
I think it's something else, and maybe inappropriate. I don't know. We'll find out later from our listeners.
That's right.
To think about that, like the goal is to get your kids to a place where they can self-regulate. How long, generally, does this co-regulation stage, or is this more of like a cyclical thing where you're constantly coming back to it?
I think it's cyclical. Yeah, because I think we realize sometimes when the skills or the strategies we're giving to our kids are not effective anymore. Just like I told you with my foster son, he can't use the passy anymore, right? Yeah. So that was a tool that I gave him when he's a baby, but he doesn't have it anymore. Yeah. Or looking like what we can do to offer that same strategy in a more maybe age-appropriate way. Yeah. So for maybe when they're little, they want to like bite or suck on something when they're upset. But when you're in middle school, like that's not cool. So using like a water bottle straw. I have a certain kind of like an Owala water bottle has a really gummy kind of straw on it. Okay. So that is really regulating because it's cold water, but also like they can bite. Biting is proprioception, right? Okay. It's like when you think of biting something, it engages your jaws. So biting can be a proprioceptive thing. So, but that's something my middle schooler can do. They can take a water bottle to school, and when they feel upset, chew on that water bottle. So I think it does go up and down as we realize like, hey, I noticed, and one of my favorite things to do is notice when they are doing it and tell them that. Hey, I noticed that you got really upset with your sister. And a lot of kids would have like screamed or done something, but you know what you did is you actually walked upstairs and you got your water bottle and you chewed on it. And I thought that was a really great strategy. Yeah. Or I saw you take some deep breaths before you responded. I thought that was fantastic. So just telling them, naming what they're doing, that's a great regulation strategy for them so that then they know like, oh, this works for me. Yeah. Just like me. I know running or walking works for me. Yeah. I was telling a story earlier that my airplane was delayed the other day and I almost lost it. Yeah. And instead I was like, I need to take a walk. I know that works for me. Yeah. So once I know that works, then I can use it again. And it might not be the same strategy for every kid. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think of my 4 kids, I think there's different ones for each of them. One of my sons is very tactile, loves to be building something. So for him, it's go play with Legos for a little bit or do something like that. One of my other kids loves to run, and he's always been very much so. Like he was the kid who was rolling on the ground when he got home from school just because he needed some type of thing like that. And so what I think is kind of fun as a parent when you get to do this with your kid is you get to kind of be a student of your kid. And it's almost like this new discovery that you get to make with them of like, what can help you? And how can I help you get there to the point where you can get there yourself?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about previously when we were talking about attunement, kind of bringing it back to the ways that we can connect to our kids, being physically present, emotionally present, and being attuned. That's exactly what attunement is it's being a student of your child and knowing when do they get dysregulated? When are they getting upset? I got some kids who get hangry in a hurry. Yeah. So I know that will dysregulate somebody. If I don't have a snack on the way home from school, we're going to have a lot more behavior problems than if I do. Yep. And I just have to be aware of that.
And do that, yeah.
And there's some ways that my kids are different from each other, but if I notice what they need, then I'm a lot more apt to be able to provide it.
Oh yeah. I mean, a melt preventing a meltdown is a lot easier than
Yes.
changing it after it's happened. And
Yes.
one of my favorite tactics that I'll do is oftentimes conversations will happen in the kitchen and meltdowns will happen in the kitchen. And so I'll have them, if I'm making something, I'll have them smell it.
Uh-huh.
And that's an easy way.
Yeah.
Like it kind of comes out of nowhere because they're having this meltdown. I'm like, oh, hey, can you smell this? Like really like casually, like completely unrelated to what we're talking about. Just like, hey, can you smell this real quick? I want to know how it smells. And they'll stop and they'll do that. And they're like, oh, that smells good. And it's just, what's fun is like when you can get that, and it can sometimes be surprising how quickly they can also snap out of those moments and come back to a normal moment. But there's a lot of fun things you can do with kids. Now, one of the things, obviously I want us to keep on talking generally about this, but you've raised kids up through, your oldest is 20
He's 20,
now.
yeah.
What does this look like a little bit in the teenage years? I think it's easy for us to maybe easier for us to imagine what it looks like with little kids. What does this look like when your teenager is having a meltdown or something like that? How does this
I'll
look
say
for
it's
you?
largely the same as when they were little. I think a lot of the times when I see teenage meltdowns happening, I can close my eyes and see that same child as a toddler.
Mhm.
And a lot of those patterns are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So if we've been a really good student of them when they're little, I think we can understand probably a lot of times what they need when they're
Mhm.
bigger. But I think it shifts their responsibility from me to doing it for them to me reminding them, I think you're dysregulated right now.
Yeah.
And what do you need?
Yeah.
And asking that question, what do you need, is really been a game changer for me.
Oh, yeah.
In a lot of ways. When kids are losing it, what do you need? A lot of times they don't know. And if they say, I don't know, I might say, I think you might need water or space. And that for me solves a lot of my teenage problems. Is, do you need space? Do you need just for all of the chaos that's happening right now to go away and have a bit of calm, or water? Do you need a drink? Because it's cold. It's kind of the same idea as smelling something. It really kind of just calms you.
Yeah.
And so for my teenagers, a lot of times I will say it is always okay to ask for a break.
Yeah.
Like if we're in the middle of a conversation, it starts to get escalated. Like that's that freedom to be vulnerable and say like, hey, I think we need a break. And then what I will ask is, how long do you think you need? And so part of my regulation strategies for my bigger kids, and even probably starting in elementary school, is teaching them how they know if their body is calm. Because shockingly, some people, me included, I don't know when I'm calm.
Yeah.
I think I'm calm, but then I'm not.
Oh, yeah. And then you're like,
I'm revved right back up.
Yeah.
So I teach, like, listen to your breathing, feel your breathing and your heartbeat, and even like blow into your hand while you're breathing and count, or think about like what your normal rate of breathing is supposed to be. I teach look in the mirror and look at your eyes, look at how dilated your pupils are. This is what they normally look like. They're dilated large when you are escalated. Look at the tops of your ears. If they're still red, then you're probably not calm. And then I will a lot of times ask them to set a timer. I have these little great visual timers that I just got on Amazon that are on the fridge. Every kid has their own color. And so we'll just set the timer for, I might say like, I don't know how long, 5 minutes, and then check and see if you're calm. And if you're calm, then we'll be ready to kind of keep moving. And it's okay if you need more time than that. That's okay. But then always coming back, again, reframing everything with connection. A lot of times it's easy as a parent. If you have a kid that has a meltdown, you say, go calm down. I think what I've learned from TBRI is, come here and I will help you calm down. Somebody that is not able to regulate by themselves is crying out for some co-regulation, some positive modeling for how to do that. And teenagers tend to want to do that by themselves, at least my teenage boys want to do that by themselves. But even just verbally coaching them through, hey, it might be a good idea for you to take a walk and, maybe get some gum. We've always got gum and peppermints at my house. That strong smell. Gum is, a good provider of proprioception again. Just giving them some tools and like making that a regular part, and then narrating, for me, my secret stealth way of coaching my teenagers is just to narrate what I'm doing. Like, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now about all the laundry that I have to do or this project that's coming up, and I'm really feeling stressed. So I think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a stick of gum and I'm going to take a walk to the mailbox. I'll be right back. I think I need to calm down. And what that is doing is just telling them, look, these are my strategies I'm using, but also as an adult, you're going to need these strategies for your whole life. This is going to be a life skill for you that you're going to need to be able to be a regulated, healthy adult.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I think about, 3 of my kids are boys, and so much of what I have found helps them in those situations is this idea of, instead of sending them away, they might not be as snuggle. Like I have a daughter, oftentimes what she wants to do is just snuggle and come up and get close. My boys are not necessarily always like that. But for me, what with can look like from a regulating standpoint is like just inviting them in, like, hey, I need to go do something in the yard.
Yes, proximity.
Come do this with me. Just be near me. I need some help with this. I will make up stuff to do.
That's right.
To go do with them.
That's
if
right.
It means doing that stuff. I love to kind of surprise them with it. Like if I can tell that they're just like that, like just kind of come sideways with it and be like, hey, while you're considering melting down over there, why don't you come take out the trash with me and then continue your meltdown? And usually by the end of it, they're not wanting to melt down or anything like that.
Even if you say nothing at all and it's just walk with me and they can just fume or do whatever they need to do. But it returns to that idea that connection is at the heart of everything we do and we need to do as parents, because it is showing them that you are important, you matter. And even in your most vulnerable state, when you are upset and you're mad, I still love you and I choose you. And I think by sending our kids away from us to calm down, sometimes it can communicate the message that when you're upset, you cannot be with me.
Yeah.
Like you're too much. That's not, I don't like that. And being upset is just a part of our human experience. And so saying it is okay to be upset. Now, we set a lot of ground rules, right? We're not going to be disrespectful. We're not going to be ugly, all the things.
Yeah.
But feeling feelings doesn't mean that it breaks a connection with the parent. It needs to be that's go time. That's when they need us the very most.
Oh, yeah. Now, one of the things you just said there really gets to the heart of this idea of grace, that there's no behavior or meltdown that can actually break that connection.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about kind of how even just the nature of grace, what that looks like in general to them, and kind of some practical ways to communicate that in those moments. Because I agree. Parenting happens in the hard moments.
Right.
Parenting happens during the meltdowns. Parenting happens during the misbehaviors or the, mistakes, failures, stuff like that. The way we connect with them in those times is where real parenting happens.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Like, how does grace inform our ability to stay connected regardless of the behavior?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think grace is, I love the definition that grace is how God parents us, right? He doesn't say, I will love you when, or I will love you if, but I will love you even though, right? And I think that is, we have to communicate that in every single way that we interact with our kids. It means that we're not expecting them to be perfect, that we're not expecting them to be just like us, that we're not expecting them to be always right, but that we're willing to make things right and help them move in the right direction and restore if something has been broken. And we're going to talk, I know, more about that later, but I think that's what grace really looks like, is that I say, I'm choosing you, I'm choosing to be in relationship with you, even if you can't do it all right all the time. That's how God loves us. But that I love you so much, I'm not going to leave you there. I'm not going to say like, well, you're not perfect, so whatever. But we're going to draw close to each other as we draw close to the heart of God to show kids that God loves them that way, right? That He loves them regardless of their behavior, that He chooses them. And we are a model for God's love for them. And so when we look at parenting through that lens, it really humbles me and shapes me, because a lot of times the way that I'm parenting doesn't align with how God is parenting me. And so reframing my goal of parenting as loving and treating kids with respect and honor, giving them opportunities to make mistakes, but then make it right. To me, that's the heart of what
Oh,
grace-based parenting is.
yeah. This reality of my own life with God, one of the most freeing things that I had discovered, growing up. And I was blessed to grow up in a home that understood grace. I was blessed to be around that and know that. But it was still one of those moments of freeing, like, I don't have to earn this. Because my natural inclination is always, whatever I get, I need to earn. I need to be deserving of whatever I get. But the freedom that can come with that. And then I think of the gift that we get to give our kids, for them to know, like, in your small mistakes and even in your big mistakes, when you are literally being the worst person I can possibly imagine, and our kids can become that, they know and are communicated always, there's nothing you can do to break this connection that
That's
we
right.
have.
And the more that we do that, the more that we reinforce that, not only with our words, but with our ways, with our behaviors, the way that we communicate and the way we respond to our kids in their worst moments is what reinforces to them that trust that my parents love me, that secure love that only grace-based parenting can offer to our kids, is that secure love that's rooted in the love that God has for us. It reinforces that idea to where it becomes a rhythm that they truly believe. And I think the more times, one of the gifts of having so many kids is that there are so many opportunities for mess ups. People are getting coached and disciplined and all over the place.
It's a discipline factory.
It really is, every minute of the day in lots of different levels. But what the beauty of that I remind myself when I'm kind of drowning in it is that with every child that I'm coaching, their siblings are seeing, like, oh, wow, that brother just, like, wrecked his car.
Yeah.
And mom told him he shouldn't even be driving that car. Woo.
Yeah.
And then they watch me respond to him with grace, with forgiveness. That is communicating to them, okay, if I wreck my car someday, that's maybe how mom and dad will respond to me. Or even bigger things. We have had such deep hurts in our family with some of the behaviors that our kids have chosen, that I think God is redeeming through that idea of grace as he models that for our other kids that come behind. Well, if mom and dad are not going to give up on him because of this, then they're going to love me that way too. And it becomes a model for how we treat each other also. We're modeling that for how our kids give grace and offer grace to their siblings, to their friends, to people, like I said, as they move through their whole lives.
Well, and I love that idea, especially, for parents who maybe have multiple kids. Parenting one kid is in some ways parenting
You're parenting all
of them. They're watching you. They're seeing how that happens. And obviously, one thing that I think is probably worth noting is we don't always respond the right way the first time. In fact, oftentimes we don't. And so I think it is worth noting also to give ourselves grace and allow that to happen, to say, even when we don't necessarily respond the right way.
I cannot count how many times I've had to come back to my kids and say, you know what, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, was I too harsh? That's if I'm going to say there's a parenting fail for me, it's my harshness, that I'm too harsh. I'm too quick to expect perfection. I'm too quick to point out somebody's faults. And it is amazing how it melts. I can see it in their face when it melts, and they're like, yes, you are too harsh. And then I can say, like, I am so sorry. But it's again and again and again that I have to continue to remind myself, like, God is not harsh with me. And even though that's my sin bent, I'm going to continue to press out of that because it shows my kids that that's the heart of God.
Yeah. And I think that's, to me, one of the hopes that I can cling to is that even when I make a mistake as a parent, that connection can still be healed.
That's right.
Which, and I think we can know this theologically, this idea of, God's forgiveness heals us, but in practice, that act, it is amazing. I would say some of the best parenting moments I've ever had with my kids are usually following right behind probably some of the worst parenting moments I've had with them.
Totally agree with that.
Where I've blown up or they've blown up or we both blown up and really some stuff that like comes out of you that you never thought was there. And you have these big moments, and then some of the sweetest, most healing, incredible things can happen right after that almost make the connection stronger. And that's not to say like, hey, you should really mess up a lot so your connection's stronger. But
I think if you're willing to be vulnerable in that moment,
yeah.
I think that if we are not willing to be vulnerable and we have these huge blow-ups, what could happen is shame. And I can see evidence of that in my life where I've made a big parenting mistake. I've screamed at somebody who did not need to be screamed at. And I realized, like, instead of going back and apologizing or acknowledging, giving myself grace, like, well, that was a bad moment. It deepens to where it's like, oh, you're just a bad mom. Not a bad moment, but a bad mom.
Yeah.
And then that lie, like, oh, well, I don't even know why God gave you this many kids. There's no way you can do this right. It circulates and it distances you not only from the heart of God, but from your children. And so I think it's really important to catch it as soon as you make a mistake or as soon as you realize like, okay, that was not where I was trying to go, and acknowledge that God has given us grace too, and that there is opportunity for us to continue moving, but to be vulnerable and willing to admit like, I was wrong. And even if you're not in a place to admit that to your child, to admit it to yourself, so that truth, that you don't have to be perfect, but that you want to be present over perfect, is really important.
And one of the things that I've found also that even helps that is kids are so, like, sometimes blindly for the success of their parents. Like, they want that connection. They want that thing to be healed. And so when we take that step to heal, there's depths that I'm sure this becomes not true anymore, but oftentimes they want to give forgiveness. They want to experience that and heal that wound. So one of the things, we talked about how you move from outside, external regulation to co-regulation to self-regulation, how connection and being emotionally attuned and physically present, all of these things are important. What are some habits, and a lot of this is when people become dysregulated, this is how you kind of get them back to a place of calmness so we can work forward. What are some habits to maintain connection that you've used in your life outside of the context of dysregulation? Like how do you maybe preempt some of this stuff and cultivate that kind of connection in just the regular rhythms of life?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For me, because I have so many kids, it has to be very intentional. And I would say time. Time is the best thing that I can, my time is the best thing that I can give to my children. And so what that looks like for me is that when my husband or I are going anywhere, we're never going by ourselves unless it's absolutely intentional. Unless I'm like, I need to go alone. We're taking someone, and we're usually only taking one someone. So if my husband is going to Lowe's, he will pick a child to go with him. And rather than say, who wants to go to Lowe's? He will say, Elizabeth, I'd love to go to Lowe's. I'm going to Lowe's. I'd love you to come with me. And that really signals to her.
They say yes.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's going to buy them gummy bears if they go.
Well,
to
no,
so
100%.
They know 100%. They're going with that.
I always use treats as a ploy.
But I think just giving that opportunity for you to be in a relationship with them outside, like a little mini date, I think that is a little life hack. Even if I'm going to go get the mail at the mailbox, I will ask somebody to go with me. A lot of times kids will share shoulder to shoulder something that they wouldn't share face to face. Face to face is very vulnerable, looking in someone's eyes. But if you're shoulder to shoulder, a lot of times you're more willing to say something that's hard or hear something that's hard. So riding in a car, taking a walk, those are really great opportunities, especially for teenagers, to say like, hey, I need to go do this. Come with me. I'll do almost anything to get my teenagers in a one-on-one situation. Not because I have anything to say, but because I want to hear them and what they have to say. And so another thing I'll do is be intentional about doing something with them that they like, that is communicating to them that you are important. So for my son, Catterson, playing baseball with him is just playing catch is the height of what he wants me to do. He's got two sisters right above him, and they don't usually want to play catch. But if I say, hey, let's go play catch, he is all in. And I feel like, just like someone who says to me, I love to play tennis. Hey, do you want to play tennis? I'm like, Yes, you want to do what I want to do. That in TBRI language is called behavior matching. So behavior matching is you doing something that mirrors what another person is doing. And at a pretty primitive level, it says like, we're together. I'm with you. And so as a means to cultivate relationship and to build connection, I will do some behavior matching. So it might mean like playing catch or doing an activity that my child wants to do. It might also mean just sitting the way that my child is sitting. So if we've got kids watching Dude Perfect in the family room who are all sitting on the floor crisscross, me sitting on the floor crisscross too communicates, I'm with you.
I'm with you. Yeah.
We're on the same team.
Yeah.
And in a larger scale with my teenagers, it's kind of a funny joke, but for Christmas, we all match pajamas. And a lot of families do this, but I do this very specifically because my family is a multiracial, multicultural family. We have kids from lots of different countries, from foster care. We have bio kids. And so wearing the same clothes, even if it's these same flannel pajama pants, communicates we're on the same team.
Yeah.
You're with me. So anything we can do to communicate, I'm with you. If we're getting a slushie at the gas station, I might get the same flavor as my child. And even if maybe that's not my favorite flavor, if I'm going with the intention of I want to connect with you, I want to show you that I'm on your team, then picking that same flavor and then pointing it out to them. Like,
you got the same thing.
Yeah.
I love strawberry too.
Exactly. Or even things like, you know what I've never noticed? Your eyes are the exact same color as mine. That's so interesting. Look at my eyes. Are they the same as yours? Yeah, that's interesting. I can't do that with all of my kids, but I have one kid that has the same color eyes as me that I can. A lot of times it might just be like, hey, you picked your red shoes today too. Cool. So noticing where you're the same is another really easy way to build connection because you don't even have to say that you like that person. Somebody earlier in my
sometimes you don't.
That's right.
Moment. Yeah,
but you can notice them. And that is the very bottom step towards connecting with someone is just acknowledging that they are there. And so I read a really interesting book when I was early in my teaching career that talked about building relationships with students, and that is the first thing. If you cannot like them, because they're hard to like, you can at first just notice them. And so with difficult students, I started just noticing things about them like, I noticed you write with your right hand. I noticed you ate a hamburger for lunch today. And it was so interesting. And eventually they started noticing me back and we started to build a relationship. And so I use that with my own kids in my home too, especially when I'm having a hard time with them. If they're struggling behaviorally, we're struggling to connect, just being intentional about doing some of that behavior matching is a really easy strategy to try.
Oh, I love that. What I love about that is you're not adding things to your plate.
Right.
Because I think that sometimes the fear is to do this well, we have to add a bunch of stuff into our lives that we don't really have time for.
Yeah.
But the beauty is to make a connection. Oftentimes it's just being a little bit more intentional about something you're already going to be doing.
You just notice. And I think for me, we learned that really, really big when we adopted our son from China. He came home when he was 14 from China. So we adopted a teenager that didn't speak English, who had never lived in a family before, and certainly had never lived in our family before. And so we had to do a lot of intentional connecting. And so that, for me, became a practice. Okay, somehow I need to communicate that I want to be in a relationship with this teenager who doesn't know me. And I don't even have language to do. So we had to do a lot of that intentional, purposeful connecting. And so we started eating ramen noodles for breakfast because that's in China. That I didn't know this, but most people just eat all Chinese. All food is all the time. They don't have like breakfast food or lunch food. All the food is all the time. So he ate noodles for breakfast when he lived there. And so we started adding noodles to our breakfast. And it's funny because now, even 6 years later, he's been home 6 years, ramen is a completely acceptable breakfast food at the Hunt House. And
ramen is good.
It is. And some of my kids say that they're half Chinese because their brother is Chinese and they got it.
Yeah.
But it's just intentional. And so I try to translate that intentionality that we had when he first came home to any circumstance, any kid. Just think to yourself, I want them to know that they are precious to me, that they're important, that I desire to be in relationship with them and then move from there. I think it just starts with being attuned and being intentional.
When I think about, we look at even going back to this idea that we want to parent our kids the way God parents us. in this idea of behavior matching, it can't be better expressed than the reality of God coming down in Jesus, literally behavior matching his creation and his children, coming alongside them, experiencing the pains that they experience, the things that they experience. I mean, he goes fishing with people. He does all this, like he's going alongside doing that stuff. And he didn't need to do that. It's not like he was incomplete. Maybe that's not how he likes spending his time, but he's doing that with us to be with us. And I love that. What I think is so encouraging, what I hope this can invite parents into is, for one, some really practical tools of like, how do you help them calm down? How do you help them regulate? How can you build that connection long term? But this invitation that you don't have to add to what you're doing to do this well. And I know for me, when our family is thriving, it's thriving because it's connected. I know in those moments, that's when I can have the hard conversations with our kids. That's when we can have those growth moments and things like that. But it's really hard to do any of these other really great things that we need to do as parents with our kids if it doesn't start with connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Joe from Guatemala. Gracebased makes free resources for parents, thanks to the generosity of listeners like me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebased.com/join.